Blog Talk Radio.
Mi chiamo apurakanu apurai kaitnut eneye EGUA medinde Odwirafo Kwesi Ptah Akhan Akwamuman Amaruka Atifi mu Odwiraman mu. Greetings to all apurai kaitnut people, many Africans, black people. Today is EGUA Day, Marketplace Day. My name is Odwirafo Kwesi Ptah Akhan, Odwirafo of the Akwamu nation in North America within Odwiraman, the purified nation, apurai kaitnut people in the Western Hemisphere. Yet I say we thank you once again for tuning into the broadcast. Tonight is a special broadcast of EGUA Marketplace Day. We wanted to deal specifically with a unique event. Of course, today, April 25th, is the 16th solar return of our publication, KUKUU-TUNTUM The Ancestral Jurisdiction. So we wanted to talk about the significance of that and its relationship to the divinity, AUSAR, and divination, ADEBISA. So we're opening up the chat room. If you have any questions or comments and you'd like to interact in the chat room, you must log in as a user in order to interact. If you have any questions or comments on the phone line, simply hit the number 1 so that we can see that your hand is raised. For those who are new to the broadcast, we have 4 broadcasts typically on a weekly basis. We have Akhan Fo Nana Som, Ancient Authentic Akhan Ancestral Religion on Joda on Monday nights, where we deal specifically with the Akhan expression of ancestral religion. First and foremost, because we are Akhan. Secondly, because of the misinformation being propagated regarding Akhan ancestral religion, culture, cosmology, and so forth, not only in the Western Hemisphere, but also by individuals on the continent of Africa, who have been infected with white pseudo-religion, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, Taoism, Buddhism, and so forth, white culture in general, and therefore their presentation of ancestral religion is infected as well. So we deal with ancient, authentic Akhan ancestral religion that deals with our ancestral religious practices originating and our ancestry originating in ancient Khanat, the Khan land, which is a title of ancient Nubia, where our people originated. Some of our people 2,000 years ago, after the fall of ancient Kemet and northern Khanat, ancient Egypt and northern Nubia, migrated west, reestablished ourselves in the western part of the continent of Africa, reestablished the Khanat Empire, the so-called Nubian Empire, the Empire of Ghana, reestablished that centuries later because of subsequent invasions by Muslims and so forth. Some of our people migrated further south, reestablished ourselves in the savanna and forest belt regions in the southern portion of West Africa, in the regions of today's contemporary Ghana and Ivory Coast. In that region, we reestablished Akhana civilization once again. Hundreds of years after that, some of our people were taken from those regions and forced into North, Central, South America, the Caribbean, and Europe during Musu Kessier, the Great Perversity, the enslavement era. And thus, we ended up in the Western Hemisphere. However, we maintained our ancestral religious practices. Thus, Akhan ancestral religion is called Winti in Suriname in South America from the Akhan term Winti. It is called Akhan ancestral religion is called Obia in Jamaica from the Akhan term Obai. Akhan ancestral religion is called Hoodoo in North America from the Akhan term Undu, which means medicine from roots, trees, plant life. It also means to become heavy with the spirit through spirit possession, spirit communication. Undu or Hoodoo, Undu can be found in the language of ancient Kemet and Khanat. In the Medutu and the hieroglyphs, the term Undu means medicine from roots, trees, plant life. It also means to become heavy, specifically heavy with the spirit through spirit possession, spirit communication. Undu also is a title of ancient Nubia, and the people are called the Undu people. It is also the term for offerings given to the shrine, to the deities and ancestral spirits, the Undu. So we deal with ancient, authentic Akhan ancestral religion on Joda on Monday nights. On Ojira Da, which is the broadcast for Tuesday night, Benada Abinada, the Ojira broadcast, we deal with ancestral religion in general, not just the Akhan expression, but wherever we exist in the world, Afurakani people maintain our ancestral religious practices in our blood. So we deal with ancestral religion in general, how it impacts every aspect of our lives. Ancestral religion in general, the proper definition is the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance. That means through ritual we incorporate those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to incorporate in order to harmonize our thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order. And through ritual we reject those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to reject in order to restore balance to our thoughts, intentions, and actions, and thus realign ourselves with divine order. So the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance, these are the expansive and contractive poles of ancestral religion. We state that Ojira, purification, operationalizes Nanasom. Purification operationalizes our ritual practice of incorporating law and restoring balance in our lives. That's what we deal with regard to the definition, because we maintained our ancestral religious practices in our blood circles, incorporating law and restoring balance. Then we're able to align every thought, every intention, and every action, every moment of every day with divine order. When we make legitimate mistakes, we engage the ritual process to incorporate law and restore balance so we can realign ourselves with divine order every moment of every day. This is how ancestral religion impacts every aspect of our lives. Our people engaging these processes ritually, intergenerationally, and transcarnationally were therefore guided by the Abosom and Nanano Nsumanfo, the deities and ancestral spirits, Orisha and Egungun, Vodou and Kuvita, especially in the Western Hemisphere, on the best means by which to wage war against the whites and their offspring, massacred them, forced the end of enslavement through warfare, taking up metal armaments as well as utilizing plant life, animal life, mineral life in the process of chemical and biological warfare, the precedent being established by our people through root work, hoodoo, juju, gree-gree, in Gangai, Wanga, and so forth in the Western Hemisphere, establishing that precedent of chemical and biological warfare through utilizing our ancestral religious practices to defend ourselves and eventually free ourselves through various manifestations of warfare. And that's a purificatory process as well. So that's the Ojira broadcast. On Yauda, Thursday night, also called Yada and Abada, we have Ama and Sim Affairs of the Nation, where we deal with our issues as an Oman, a nation specifically as Odwiraman, the purified nation, Afurakani people in the Western Hemisphere, where we address our issues from an Amaniye perspective or nationist perspective. We deal with Amaniye nationism, the purification of nationalism, rooted in our proper understanding of what an Oman, a nation is, as a living, breathing entity governed by specific abosom forces in creation, and we are cells of those divinities, those forces in creation that govern that specific structure. And Oman is like an organ, a nation is like an organ, and the cells within the organ are us, Afurakani people. As cells, we support the functions of the organ, that entity of which we are a component part. We also align ourselves with the forces in nature, the energy that governs that particular organal structure. When we were forced into the Western Hemisphere, we were guided by our ancestresses and ancestors to coalesce in a specific region of the Earth Mother's body, blend ancestral blood circles in that specific region, interface with the Earth Mother divinities in this Western region of their body, incorporate that energy, incorporate the energy of the plant life, animal life, mineral life in this region of the Earth Mother's body for food as well as medicine, and also their spirit totems. Incorporate the unique expression of energy of the Abosom, Orisha, Vodou, and so forth, the deities as they manifest in this region of the Earth Mother's body. And of course, to align with the Earth Mother divinities as they manifest their unique expression of energy in this region of their body. And that confluence of events allowed us to forge a locative identity, a unique expression of Afurakani culture and people rooted in our interfacing with the Earth Mother divinities, Asaseyafo and Asasaya, and the expression of the Aboso, Marisha, Vodou, and so forth in this region, inclusive of our blending of ancestral blood circles. So we have a unique expression of ancestral culture, ancestral religious practice based on our locative identity, and a unique approach to solving our issues based on our Amaniye, or nationist perspective. Nationism is the purification of nationalism. So this is what we deal with on Ama and Sim Affairs as a Nation. Tonight is EGUA Marketplace Day. We deal specifically with showcasing businesses, organizations, institutions that are serving our community in a positive capacity. Those institutions who maintain their ancestral religious values in the context of their service to the community. So we showcase businesses, organizations, institutions. They come onto the show to showcase their work in the community and so forth. We have our Okom economic development model, which is an approach to economic development rooted in our ancestral religious values. You can download that from our website as well. So this is what we deal with on the broadcast. But tonight, April 25th, is our 16th anniversary of really an institution, but our book, KUKUU-TUNTUM The Ancestral Jurisdiction. And we wanted to highlight that and give some detailed information. If you go to our page, we'll put the link in the chat room right now, the KUKUU-TUNTUM page. Hold on 1 second, we'll put that link in the chat room. Once again, if you want to interact in the chat room, you must log in as a user in order to interact. But when you go to the KUKUU-TUNTUM page, you'll see the detailed information. So specifically, we published the KUKUU-TUNTUM first as a 3-CD audio set, an audio book, in 2002. Then we released the entire audio book as a free MP3 download from our website in 2006, so-called 2006. We subsequently released the transcript of the KUKUU-TUNTUM in the form of the book, the ebook version of the KUKUU-TUNTUM, The Ancestral Jurisdiction, is a free download, of course. In 2015, we released the entire KUKUU-TUNTUM audio book version as a video on YouTube. So it was first a 3-CD set, then we put it online for free, then we put it in book form, the printed version as well as the ebook version, and then it's also a video as well. You can listen to the entire audio book as well on YouTube, on our website, link to YouTube as well, but also download the ebook version or purchase the softcover version and so forth. As we show on the page, we've reached over 1 million Africans, Black people here and around the world via the KUKUU-TUNTUM since its release in 2002. Innumerable Africans have shared with us that the KUKUU-TUNTUM is the most important work they have experienced. Africani people have transformed their lives and the lives of their children and those connected to them through the embrace of the KUKUU-TUNTUM. We have liberated hundreds of thousands of our people from the idiocy of Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hebrewism, Hinduism, Vedanta, Buddhism, Moorishism, pseudo-esotericism, pseudo-metaphysics, pseudo-Native Americanism, atheism, humanism, Kabbalism, pseudo-psychology, Hermeticism, and so forth, and more permanently. Liberated our people from these foolish practices permanently through the KUKUU-TUNTUM. We have in the process restored hundreds of thousands of our people back permanently to their ancestrally inherited African ancestral religious traditions born of their direct spirit genetic blood circles. One of the main keys, of course, we deal with cosmology in the beginning, the first section dealing with the origin of creation, the origin of the name Afuraka. We talk about Amen and Amenet. We talk about Ra and Ra'et. We talk about Ka and Ka'et. We talk about Ma'ar and Ma'at. We establish that foundational balance in creation, the divine balance of male and female. That's one of the first things that people notice about the text, dealing with the proper understanding of cosmology, born of that divine balance of male and female. Many people deal with Amen, but they don't talk about Amenet. People know about Ra, but they don't know the function of Ra'et, the creatress. They've heard about the goddess Ma'at, but don't know about the male deity Ma'al, who's one half of the divine law and balancing creation. So we go into detail about these pieces. We introduce the proper understanding and definition of the term Afuraka, the male and female expressions of the term Africa. We go into that and we first establish that in detail in the KUKUU-TUNTUM. Of course, we've written our book subsequently, Afuraka, the origin of the term Africa, which includes all of that information in some more detail. But we introduce that detail in the KUKUU-TUNTUM. We talk about the nature of Afurakani people, our spiritual anatomy, as distinct from the whites and their offspring, the differences between us physiologically but also spiritually. We also deal with the nature and function of the deities, the nature and function of the spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors, our ancestral clans, ancestral religion, and so forth, proper definitions, and then the latter part of the text, the second two-thirds of the text, that's the first third of the text, and the second two-thirds go into detail showing who the fictional cartoon characters of the Bible, Quran, and Talmud are, how they are manufactured characters who never existed of any race or in any form whatsoever. And we show how they were manufactured off of titles and specific fragments of information regarding deities and ancient Kemet. So these fictional cartoon characters who never existed of any form or of any race whatsoever includes Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael, Moses, Aaron, David, Judah, Jesus, Yeshua, Mary, Yeshua ben Pandera, Muhammad, Allah, Yahweh, Elohim, Solomon, Sheba, Menelik, Brahman, Buddha, and more. All of those characters are fictional. All of them never existed. There were no black expressions or non-black. They didn't exist in spiritual form or physical form in any form whatsoever. We deal with the false religions and false religious writings of Christianity and the Bible, Islam and the Quran, Judaism, Hebrewism and the Torah, Hinduism and the Vedas, Buddhism and the Dhammapadas, European pseudo-esotericism and the Kabbalah, and more. Referencing these texts of ancient Kemet and Kanit, as well as the comparative and experiential analysis of the languages, cultural and ritual spiritual practices of the Akhan, Ebe, Yoruba, Igbo, Kanesu, Kamau ancestral cultures. So we go into detail about that in the KUKUU-TUNTUM The Ancestral Jurisdiction. This is why it's been so impactful, getting people off of these fake religions, proving conclusively that the characters that make up these fake religious writings and so forth never existed, and how they were manufactured off names and titles and fragments of cosmology from the deities of our ancestral religious practice, which is the deities that govern creation, the whites and their offspring taking bits and pieces of fragments of information, less than 1% of the information dealing with the forces in creation that they learned about by reading these stories in papyri and sarcophagi and temples and tombs and ancient Kemet and so forth, watching what our people were doing, taking less than 1% of that information they were able to glean and even corrupting that less than 1% and then putting it forward as truth, as revealed wisdom and so forth, and manufacturing white characters to fit these personalities. So we prove that conclusively, destroying these fake religions from their foundation. We don't talk about respecting other people's religions and therefore they should respect ancestral religion just so like we respect theirs. We have no respect at all for these fake, foolish, pseudo-religions which do not qualify as religion at all. So when people listen to the KUKUU-TUNTUM for the first time, listen to the entire 2 hours and 39 minutes and so forth. They're able to break themselves away from those fictional and false traditions and fictional and false characters, even if they have been involved in Christianity for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. We have people who are young people, even people who are elders and elderesses in their 60s, 70s, and on. Upon one hearing of the KUKUU-TUNTUM The Ancestral Jurisdiction, they drop that nonsense that they've been embracing, these fake religions they've been embracing for decades. That is the power of the work. This is why people say it's the most informative and transformational of the various works we have done. It is the foundation of various works we put forward. Of course, we have 30 books out right now. We have more books coming out this year, at least 8 more books coming out this year. We've done over 333 broadcasts, and KUKUU-TUNTUM is foundational to their reality. Now, we also want to talk about this notion of 16. This is the 16th year of the KUKUU-TUNTUM. Now, that's very important for a number of reasons. 16 is a sacred number because it is associated with the divinity AUSAR, also called Asi, or Asir. In Akhan, he's called Asi, as well as Awusi. This is the divinity in the Yoruba tradition. It's called Obatala. In Vodun, it's called Dangbe. In Igbo, it's called Agwu-Isi. But this force in creation, when you learn about the story of AUSAR, Set, and Heru, and Set, and Nebuchadnezzar, and so forth, you find that AUSAR was the king, Set was the queen mother. Set, the jealous brother, comes at some point, kills AUSAR, and cuts his body up into a number of pieces and scatters them around the country. He takes over the rule of ancient Kemet, rules in a tyrannical fashion and so forth. It is Set that goes around and finds the different parts of the body of AUSAR and works to recombine them, remember them, recollect or recollect them. The mummification process begins and so forth. The spirit of AUSAR connects with Set after reconstitution, impregnates her, and she gives birth to Heru, the heir, who will grow up to defeat Set, wage war against Set and his followers and so forth, and restore the empire to balance civilization manifest through AUSAR and Set. So we go into detail about that story, but the key part of the story that many people are unaware of is that AUSAR's body was carved up into 16 pieces. Now, very often, because of the influence of Greek writers such as Plutarch and others writing about AUSAR and Set, calling them Osiris and Isis and so forth, they focused on this corrupted tradition of the body of AUSAR being divided up into or cut up into 14 pieces in association with the different phases of the moon. But in reality, when you look in the text of ancient Kemet, you will find that the body of AUSAR was carved up into 16 pieces. And not only that, looking at some of the ancient texts, you'll find the 16 members of the body. The head is one piece, the soles of the feet, bones, the arms, his heart, his interior, his tongue, his eye, his hand, his fingers, his back, his ears, his loins, his body, his head with the face of a ram, and his hair. So these in the ancient text, you'll find the 16 pieces. Sometimes they have different titles for them and so forth, but they also talk about the different shrines that were established in ancient Kemet. Every time a piece of the body of AUSAR was found, then Set would establish a shrine, a sacred sanctuary in that particular region of the country. And that part of the body, there's a ritual form, a ritual shrine form, that part of the body in that sacred shrine and so forth. So you find these 16 different shrines all over the country of ancient Kemet. What's also important in the actual stories from our ancestral culture, which is different from the Greek text. We dealt with this in the previous broadcast, is that in the Greek text, they talk about the phallus, or the sex organ of AUSAR, was lost and thrown into a river and consumed by a fish, and then Auset had to fashion magically a sex organ for AUSAR, a phallus for AUSAR, in order to copulate with his spirit and connect so that she could conceive Heru. In reality, in the text of ancient Kemet, all of the parts of the body of AUSAR were found, including the Ka, which is the term for phallus, and that was ritualized as well. So the Greek text mixes up a story from the Middle Empire called the Tale of the Two Brothers, and in that tale of Anpu and Basa, the two brothers, one of the brothers' organ was cut off and thrown in a river and was consumed by a fish, and the Greeks mixed that story up with the story of AUSAR, Auset, and Heru, and therefore when Plutarch relates the story in his form, in his language of Osiris and Isis, he includes that episode, which is inaccurate. But in the text of ancient Kemet, that is not borne out. The reality is borne out. So, and you'll find, the shrine in ancient Kemet where the phallus of AUSAR was found as well. So you have these 16 parts of the body of AUSAR. One thing we want to pull up in our book, Rekit Henasperet, which is key. We're going to pull that up right now. In fact, we'll put a link in the chat room for that. We have a book called Rekit Henasperet, Etymology and Cosmology of Religion and Spirit. And we just placed that in the chat room. Okay. And what we want to do is go to the page. When we're talking about Rekit Henasperet, the terms religion and spirit do not come from the whites and their offspring. Those terms come from our ancestral language of ancient Kemet. Religion and spirit, or religion and spirituality, are identical. It is pseudo-religion, which is not congruent or incongruent with spirituality. So this foolish notion of I'm not religious, I'm spiritual, that comes from the whites and their offspring. That dichotomy between religion and spirituality that's manufactured by the whites and their offspring. That's nonsense. So we show the etymology and cosmology of these terms. We talk about the term religion. Re means back or again. That comes from the ancient term in Kemet, rir, R-E-R, or rir, meaning back or again, to go back around. And even the medut, not only is it R-E or R-E-R, meaning back again, or to go back around, but the medut also includes the terminative symbol of two legs walking back around. So the whites and our offspring know that re or re means back again, to redo, for example, to do again, or to return, to turn back, and so forth. When it's talking about back or again, or coming back around and so forth, they don't know why the sound re or re means back or again, but we show that we have the exact same term, but also the actual medusa and the cosmology. It's based on the return of the Aten, the sun, when it rises in the east, sets in the west, goes into the underworld and so forth, and returns or goes back to its point of origin. And you see the two legs walking back to the point of origin. That rear term is where the re portion of religion comes from. Then the term religion is legio and leg, and then we go into detail about lek in the P. So in the language of ancient Kemet, there was no letter L, there was a rolling R. So any loan words that came from foreigners with the letter L that they included in the hieroglyphs when they were writing like the Greeks, like the term Ptolemy, would be pronounced and written Ptah-remi, as opposed to Ptolemy, and the letter L will be transcribed with the medut or hieroglyph of the symbol for the R. The same in the Akhan language. There is no letter L in the Akhan language. There's a rolling R. So the term, for example, mulatto, which is a foreign term, if an Akhan person pronounced that, it is murato ni, because you're interchanging the L for the R sound and so forth. So when you say religion, we already have the re portion that comes directly from our language. Ligion comes from ligio and lek in the Proto-Indo-European language phylum, but that lek or leki or legio comes from the ancient Kemetic term. Rek is a lek and leki, Proto-Indo-European, but that comes directly from rek and reki. And what does that mean? Rek means to be wise, to know, to be acquainted with, to be skilled in an art or craft. Rekit means knowledge, learning. Rek also means science, knowledge. Rekit is a title of Aset, meaning the knowledgeable one, which he's operating through the star system, Sapatit. The Rekitu are those beings, those ancestral spirits who have knowledge, that collection of men and women with knowledge who made their transition. You see their bodies. Sometimes they have the body of a man or woman and the wings of a bird, or sometimes the body of a bird with the arms of a human being, or sometimes the body of a human being with the head of a specific bird. These are the Rekitu, the knowledgeable ones, and so forth. So we go into some detail about that. They also are spirit mediums. They become possessed by the deities. They are horses for the spirits and so forth. We have those individuals in our families, those who are horses or magnets for the spirits of the ancestors and the deities. They become possessed. Those are the Rekitu, the spirit mediums. So we go into some detail about that. We go into some detail about the Medutu. But we want to scroll down. I want you to get to the point where we show, and I want to read this directly. Okay, when you get to page 14, Rek, to be wise, to know, to be acquainted with. Rekit, knowledge, learning. Rek, science, knowledge. Reku, the known characteristics of a person. Wise, understanding. Rek is the name of a male divinity, the god of knowledge, and the duad of Rekit is the female divinity of knowledge and so forth. Now, there's also Rek, a learned person, Rek and Reket, list, catalog, statement, summary, account, report, contents of a document. Rekit, a detailed statement and account. Now that's very important because the etymological foundation, as we said, religion is leg, or leki is key. If you look in the page 11, not 14, page 11. Leger means, first we have read, which means again. Leger means read, and then it says see lecture. But leg means to bind. Leg means to bind, to tie, to bind. But then leger means read. And then it says see the term lecture. When you look at the term lecture in the Proto-Indo-European language phylum, that's the root of lecture is leg, to pick together, gather, collect. And then they also talk about rely. The root is re, and then leger, meaning to bind. That's the root of ligament, legs, to bind, and so forth. They go into some detail about that. But to pick together, to gather, to collect, to pick out, to choose, that's leger, to read. When you're reading something, you're gathering, collecting, picking out these different words and gathering them together. To pick together, gather, collect. Leg. And we talked about rek, meaning the same thing. Now, let me scroll down a little bit. Just want to make sure we get that specific piece. And there you see on page 14, Rekit, a list, catalog, statement, summary, account, report, contents of a document. So leg, meaning to pick out, gather, and collect, comes from rek, to list, the catalog, statement, summary, account. When you summarize these different things and make an account, then you have a report, a detailed statement or account, rekit. A list, catalog, statement, summary, account, report as a definition of rek in ancient Kemet, which is lek in the Proto-Indo-European language phylum. references the capacity to pull together the contents of a document and gain meaning from them. This leads to rek, knowledge, to be skilled. It is a binding, lek or rek, together of disparate elements in a harmonious fashion to transmit wisdom. One who demonstrates this capacity is knowledgeable, skilled on a mundane level, meaning one of the rekitu. Moreover, on a spiritual level, they have the capacity to pull together, bind the spirits of the Ntoru to the deities, and Akutu, the spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors, into their bodies to function as vessels of communication via spirit possession. The rekitu or rekiu, as spirit mediums, can pick out, gather, collect, read, that is the term rek or lek, and the messages from the spirits. When one can pick out, gather, collect, and read, that's lek, to bind, lek, to pick out, gather, collect, and make a meaning, re-legging or re-legio, re-legio, religion. Later on is to bind or tie, lek, to rebind, retie, refashion, recollect, regather, to pick out so you can read. On a mundane level, that is picking out the meanings from these different terms, picking out these terms, pulling them together to have a report or a summary or an account of what is pulled together, that is reading. But when one who is a rekitu can, out as spirit mediums, gather, collect, and read the messages from the spirits, because they bind the spirits, binding those spirits to their bodies through spirit possession and communication, picking out, gathering, collecting, reading the messages from the spirits. This is divination. The term legio is derived from this cosmological function of lekiu or rekiu. That's the ritual incorporation of divine law, and the ritual restoration of divine balance is demonstrated through our repetitive daily acts of re-legging or re-legging, re-wrecking, rebinding, realigning our thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order. We are engaging in direct process, gaining knowledge and wisdom through ritual to maintain spiritual balance in our lives. Why is that key, that notion of lecking or re-wrecking and so forth, to pick out, gather, collect meaning? Spiritually, that has to do with divination. You'll find that the major forms of divination all over the continent of Afurakaet are 16 symbol divination, whether it's Erin Gilogun in the Yoruba tradition, which is associated with Ifa and so forth, or Fa in Vodun, the 16 palm nuts and so forth, 16 symbol divination you find all over the continent. That's pulling together those 16 pieces for reading, for insight, to make a summary or an account from the spirits. That comes directly from the body of Awusi, of AUSAR, being cut up into 16 different pieces. And once those 16 different pieces were separated, Offset comes to pull those 16 pieces together. So that connection between AUSAR and Offset, the body of AUSAR, and Offset coming together to bind those 16 pieces together, rebind, religging, and so forth, and then mummification of those 16 pieces. Once those 16 pieces are properly mummified or purified and so forth, then that communication with the spirit and spirit possession can take place, and then conception can take place, and Heru can be born from that conception. That is the binding together of those 16 disparate elements, binding them together ritually so that something can be born from that. Enlightenment can be born from that. Illumination can be born from that. That is divination. That is Adebisa, as we call it in the Akhan tradition, based on the function of AUSAR in that process. When things were in disarray, scattered, chaotic, and so forth, we pull those 16 pieces together that govern every aspect of creation on a foundational level, regulating every aspect of creation on a foundational level, and then we can gather meaning from those 16 different pieces. Now, there's a direct relationship to AUSAR in the physical body, with regard to that process. So we're going to pull up our book. We'll put a link to that book in the chat room, or the second volume of the Akradin Bosom book. So we, in the Akhan tradition, the deities that govern the solar, lunar, and planetary bodies that regulate the 7-day week are called the Akradin Bosom. AUSAR or AUSAR is one of those divinities, of course, and we show those divinities. We list them all in the Akhan tradition. Their manifestations in the culture, Kemet and Khanid as well as the Yoruba tradition, the Vodun tradition, and so forth. We have a chart for that where we show who's who in these different traditions. Now, one of the things we say in the beginning, in Akhan culture, major male Abosom divinity operating through the Oriya, the sun, is called AUSAR. The Abosom AUSAR, the deity AUSAR, is also called Awisi, Ayisi, Asi, Sisi, and Kwesi. AUSAR is the male Akradin Bosom of Kwesi Da or AUSAR Da Sunday, whereas Esi or Offset is the female divinity, Akradin Bosom governing Sunday in this cycle. AUSAR or AUSAR establishes regulatory order in creation. He is the Abosom who operates as the divine endocrine system, the regulatory structure within Abodie creation, within the divine body of Nyamewa, Nyameo, Amenet, Amen. In creation is the divine body of the Great Mother and Great Father, the Supreme Being. AUSAR operates as and regulates the endocrine system within the great divine body of the Supreme Being. He thus operates as the endocrine system within the Afurakani, or African or black body. So the different deities within creation are the organs and systems within the great divine body of the Supreme Being, the Great Mother and Father, Supreme Being, Amenet and Amen. Just like the organs and glands and systems within your body are children of you, the greater body. You're like Amen if you're a male, Amenet if you're a female. The organs within your body are children of you, and they regulate order in the body, the organs and glands and systems. Within the children of the organs and glands and so forth are the cells, and those cells serve their parent organs. We are the cells, plant life, animal life, mineral life, and Afurakani, African black human life only. We are the cells within the great divine body of the Supreme Being. The organ of which we are a component part is our parent deity, our parent Orisha, our parent Abosom, parent Vodu, parent Ntoro, or Ntoro, so-called Neter, and so forth. When we serve our parent organ, then we're serving the great body of the Supreme Being at the same time. Just as when your liver cells serve the liver, their parent, quote-unquote, deity, they're serving you, the great being, at the same time. So therefore, every cell has a specific function in the divine body. We have a specific function in the great divine body of Amen and Amenet based on the organ or the deity of which we are a component cellular part. That is the cosmology of creation. We go into detail about that, and we were the first to go into that kind of detail about that in the KUKUU-TUNTUM The Ancestral Jurisdiction. Now, but what we say about AUSAR or AUSAR, AUSAR, Asir, in Akhan, Asi, is a spirit force who has a regulatory function in creation. He regulates the functions and operations of other Abosom deities, just as your pituitary gland regulates the functions and operations of other glands of the endocrine system within your body. So does Asi, as a divine organ, regulate the functions and operations of the various other divine organs, Abosom, which exist in as the divine body of Nyamewa Nyame, the Great Mother and Great Father, Supreme Being. Asi thus functions as the divine pituitary gland in creation, which is the master gland that regulates the entire endocrine system and so forth. This is, by the way, on page 12 of our book, Akradin Bosom, Volume 2. Then we say the endocrine system helps control growth and development, homeostasis, which is the internal balance of body systems, metabolism, reproduction, and response to stimuli, stress, and/or injury. The pituitary gland is the master gland of the endocrine system and thus regulates its functioning. In the same fashion, Asi, or AUSAR, AUSAR, establishes regulatory order in creation among the planets, stars, suns, moons, oceans, winds, plant life, animal life, mineral life, Afurakani, Afurakani, African human life, your organs and systems, spiritual potencies, forces, and so on. When that regulatory order is established within the Afurakani population, the communal quote-unquote body, it manifests as the establishment of civilization. Those Afurakanu, Afurakaitnut Africans, black people, who are born of and guided by the energy and consciousness of Asi or Awusi, meaning that's their head divinity, are therefore those who manifest the capacity to establish civilization, which is properly defined as a social order rooted in the divine order of creation. Then we show the anterior and posterior lobes of the pituitary gland, which is the master gland of the endocrine system. And then we show the Akhan Adinkra symbol, Abadye Santen, which includes the seat and the eye of AUSAR and so forth. And his symbolism in ancient Kemet, spelling his name as a seat. And then his eye, in the Akhan Adinkra symbol, you have the seat with the eye incorporated within the seat. And we're showing that is that arrangement. That is that symbol of Awusi AUSAR in the body and so forth. So regulating the different systems within the body. When you look at the endocrine glands and that system, that structure, you'll notice, and we can pull this information up real quick. Hold on one second. You have major and minor organs of the endocrine system. And when you look at the different organs of the endocrine system, you have the hypothalamus, you have the pineal gland, the pituitary gland, the thyroid, the parathyroid, which is a system of 4 glands. You have the adrenal glands, which are 2 glands. You have the testes, as well as the ovaries, which are 2 glands as well. And then, of course, also another major endocrine organ is the placenta, which releases hormones into the system as well. So when you look at those different glands and their number, you will find there's 16 major glands, major and minor glands of the endocrine system. That is the sacred 16 number of Awusi being cut up into different parts and so forth, those organs that regulate order within the body. He has a regulatory function in creation in partnership with Offset and so forth. So when those 16 different organs are disparate, so to speak, in their functioning, then the body will fall apart. But when they're bound together through their functioning, then the body is able to function harmoniously. Awusi being bound properly mummified, purified, drawn together permanently, so he can function permanently as an ancestor through that natural ancestral shrine with the physical body, which is mummified, becoming the crystal, and that crystallized body radiates the energy of the divinity and so forth, and you can come to that mummified body through pouring libation and coming to the shrine and so forth and gain wisdom. When the spirit comes down and takes up residence in that mummified body to communicate with us, we have a sculpture of AUSAR replicating that mummified body and so forth, ritually invoking the divinity, comes down to communicate with us. We have those 16 cowrie shells or 16 seashells and so forth. These are these 16 parts of the endocrine system, 16 parts of Awusi's body. You'll find that same system in the Fa divination system amongst the Igbo, Fa in Vodun, Erin de Lagoon, in the Yoruba tradition and so forth. You're finding that sacred number. This is the 16th year of the release of the KUKUU-TUNTUM The Ancestral Jurisdiction. Because my Nanano Nsamanfo recognized my function in creation, I'm the person in the family that was designated to put forth the KUKUU-TUNTUM. I'm born on a Sunday. I'm Kwesi, meaning Kwa Asi, meaning a servant of or subject of Kwa Asi or Awusi, the one who was carved up into 16 pieces, of course, with those 16 pieces being bound together. So naturally, myself being in the family, I'll be one of those people in the family born under the governance of that divinity, naturally being moved to put forward the KUKUU-TUNTUM The Ancestral Jurisdiction, which is reestablishing order, regulating order within the minds and the spirits of our people, rejecting the fake pseudo-religions and bringing order and arrangement of proper understanding of cosmology and culture back to the Afro-Kani community through that foundational balance of Amen, Amenet, Ka and Kayet, Hehu and Hehu, Nun and Nunet, Ra and Rayet, Atem, Asase Nebet Tepet, Kepra, Asase Nebet Pet, Ma'ar, Ma'at, Tehuti, and Seshat, Kunum and Heket, and all these different divinities, the balance of male and female. You'll find that in the KUKUU-TUNTUM. We deal with the cosmological foundation of creation, dealing with the regulatory order of creation and so forth. And, of course, then we lay out the fictional cartoon characters of these fake traditions and their fake religious writings. That is a restoration of ancestral religious practice, ancestral religious culture, ancestral religious cosmology. That is a restorative, resurrecting kind of function. And this is why they wanted us to put the KUKUU-TUNTUM out, the ancestral jurisdiction. We are in the 16th year, governed by Awusi, that 16 symbol and that energy of 16 and so forth. We've talked about Rekit, becoming Lek and Lekit, and releg and religging and religio and so forth. That Lek, meaning to pick out, to gather, to collect, to derive some meaning, coming from Rek, meaning wisdom, to pick out, gather, and derive some meaning, not only from reading text and so forth and writing, but also spiritually, the Rekitu, those spirit mediums who can possess or bind the spirits of the ancestresses and ancestors to themselves through spirit possession, so they can pick and gather out and collect spiritual messages being transmitted from the Abosom and Nananom and Samanfo, the deities and ancestral spirits who are spiritually cultivated of our blood circles. That is divination. That is Adebisa. And this is the reason why it was actually this year, 13,018, where we are going to be releasing our film AMARUKAFO ADEBISA ADWUMADI, African American Ancestral Divination Project. We're dealing with the different forms of divination maintained in the blood circles of our people here in North America through our ancestral religious practices, including Hoodoo, which is the Akhan ancestral religion in North America, Juju, which is the Yoruba ancestral religion in North America, Voodoo, which is the Ebe and Fon ancestral religion in North America, Wanga, which is the Ovambo ancestral religion in North America, part of the Gullah constellation, Ngengang, which is the Fang, F-A-N-G, the Fang ancestral religion in North America. So we're coming together as those Rekitu spirit mediums to showcase the ancestral religious practices, forms of divination that we maintain in our blood circles, myself, as well as Voodoo Queen Kalinda Laveau, Rekit, Kajara, Nia Ya Nebehet, Wabet, Seshat, Tut Ankwajet, and Mama Mawusi Ashakir. All five of us will be showcased in this documentary film that we are producing. This is the reason why it's coming out this year. Initially, we started the information and the campaign last year, and we were going to try to put it out last year. But the Nananom and Samanfo and the Abosom, the ancestral spirits, our spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors, and the Abosom, the divinities, they didn't want that film dealing with divination maintained in our blood circles to come out last year in the 15th year of the KUKUU-TUNTUM. They wanted it to come out after the 16th year had been completed, which is today. And actually, the Kradane, it happened on April 25th, 13,002, so-called 2002, when we released the KUKUU-TUNTUM. So that was actually a Yauda, which is a Thursday. This year, that date lands today, which is an Awukuda Akwada Wednesday. But the Kradane, or the soul day for KUKUU-TUNTUM, is Yauda Thursday. So tomorrow is actually the soul day or the Krada of the KUKUU-TUNTUM, the Ancestral Jurisdiction. So between today and tomorrow, this is that time period where we reach that 16th solar return. And now that it's the 16th solar return has taken place this week. As some of you know, this week actually Joda and Benada, Monday and Tuesday, and we just got back very late last night and got back here like 1 o'clock in the morning. We were in Florida filming the first segment of the film, and then we will be moving to go to Georgia and New Orleans and Alabama and Mississippi and Virginia and Ohio and Chicago and so forth to the different seats of ancestral religion, the shrines of the various Rakitu, the diviners in the film and divineresses in the film to film in those locations. So we will have the film ready for release. Our goal is to have the film ready for release in June after the summer solstice, which is around June 20th, 21st, and so forth every year, the hottest time of the year, the highest point of the sun, and so forth. After that point, then we'll have the goal is to have the film ready after that point. So this is the reason we're in this time frame. This is what's taking place right now. This is a fulfillment of that 16-year process in direct relation to AWUSI governing that 16 phases of the or aspects of the endocrine system, the regulatory system within the body, but also, of course, that divination process. This is why we're doing this special broadcast. We want to illuminate that reality. If anyone has any questions or comments you'd like to make in the chat room, you must log in as a user in order to interact. If you have any questions or comments on the phone line, hit the number 1. This was simply a special broadcast just to acknowledge not only the KUKUU-TUNTUM, the Ancestral Jurisdiction, but also to let our people know who have been following the work, and then people who are new as well, why we're, number 1, having the film being released at this particular time in this particular year. When you look at the title of the broadcast, AFU-AUSAR, you'll see that's the title of AUSAR when he's in the duat and so forth, operating through the flesh and so forth, and that particular flesh, Afu, we're talking about that flesh, the 16 pieces that will pull together and so forth. So we wanted people to understand not only that this is simply an anniversary, a 16th anniversary of the KUKUU-TUNTUM, but the significance not only of the work, its regulatory, ordering, function, regulating the spirits and awareness of our people and restoring our consciousness and pulling the disparate elements of our trustery, our cosmology, our ritual practice, our culture, and our nation building all together in one work. That's what the KUKUU-TUNTUM, the Ancestral Jurisdiction, has done. This is why it's the most transformative of the work we have put forward, and it's the foundation, along with Ubin Sheng and Wavo Jira, for everything that we are doing in Akwamuman, Amaruka, Atifi, the Akwamu nation in North America, and affecting the entirety of Odwiraman, the purified nation, Afro-Akani people in the Western Hemisphere, as well as Afro-Akani people, African black people, wherever we exist in the world. So what we want to say is, for those who have benefited from the KUKUU-TUNTUM, if you listened to the KUKUU-TUNTUM, you shared it with other individuals, you shared the audio book, you shared the video, which you can go to our website and give the link to the video. People can watch that and listen to the entire audio book. If you downloaded the free ebook version and so forth, or had the softcover version, if it has positively impacted you in some fashion, or impacted your children in some fashion, or those you are connected with in some fashion, what we want to do today is EGUA, which is marketplace. And we deal with businesses, organizations, and institutions on this day. Of course, this is Akua Wednesday, governed by the female divinity Akua, which is Nebihet in ancient Kemet. She's Akua and Akhan. She's the one with the sacred vessel on her head and so forth, but she gives the offerings and carries the offerings that we give to the deities and ancestral spirits to them, ritually and so forth. This is dealing with the marketplace, EGUA. So we have our crowdfund effort for the film, We plan to complete the film for release in June, but we're still partially on the way there. We just surpassed the 65% mark in our crowdfunding goal. We're already in the filming process. We have a number of states to travel to, inclusive of, the final filming date, which will be in New Orleans on Memorial Day weekend, because that is also the date, Memorial Day weekend, of our Ka Soul of Hoodoo and Voodoo event. With myself and Voodoo Queen Kalinda Laveau will be hosting that weekend retreat, the Soul of Hoodoo and Voodoo, in New Orleans. We still, by the way, have some spaces for that. If you would like to sign up for that retreat, you can go to our Ka Soul of Hoodoo and Voodoo page on the website to sign up. But that will also be, since we'll be in New Orleans, that'll be the day we film Kalinda's segment for the film. And our goal is, and our schedule is to have, we already filmed Seshat this week in Florida. Just got back at 1 o'clock this morning, as a matter of fact. Then we'll be filming Kajara, who is in Georgia now, and Mama Mawusi, who's in Ohio. Then, of course, my section will be in Chicago, as well as parts of the South in Alabama, Mississippi, and so forth. So we want to get all of those pieces in before the Memorial Day weekend event, which will be the final weekend of filming. And then we'll start the post-production process after Memorial Day weekend, which will lead into June. We'll spend a number of weeks going through the post-production process, edit and finalize the film for release. So we're on that track. We're at 65% of our crowdfunding goal, and that's why we have been able to purchase, the expensive equipment and so forth, and go out, begin to travel and so forth to film. If you've been positively impacted by the KUKUU-TUNTUM The Ancestral Jurisdiction at some point over the past 16 years, take a few moments right now as you're listening to go to our fundraiser.com, FUNDRAISER.com/AMARUKAFO_ADEBISA and contribute to our crowdfunding effort. This is the best way at this point to show appreciation for what the KUKUU-TUNTUM has done for you, how it's impacted you or your children or your relatives or those with whom you've come into contact with, because the lessons in the KUKUU-TUNTUM will be infused in the film, and then it will reach a much wider audience of Afro-Kaini people here in this country, but also around the world, to transform our people, snap our people out of that coma so they can awaken, resurrect like AUSAR was killed but then resurrected. They can snap out of that coma of being involved in Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, pseudo-esotericism, atheism, all these idiotic practices, traditions, and so forth, this nonsense, and get back involved in their ancestral religious tradition that is inherited via their blood circle that we are born into the world with. KUKUU-TUNTUM will be undergirding this entire film. It's focused on divination, but it's carrying that ancestral cosmology, and we'll be detailing that cosmology in the film for all of our people to see. So when you contribute to this, if it's impacted you in a positive capacity, contribute to our film, and that will allow us to impact millions of our people. We'll be not only screening this film all over the country, but we also have individuals in different countries who have downloaded the KUKUU-TUNTUM and our various books and listened to our broadcasts over the years and so forth, and they are looking forward to us screening our film in places like the Netherlands and then France and in South Africa and Ghana and different parts of Europe where black people are, all over the continent of Africa, as well as in South America, the Caribbean, and so forth, different parts of the world. So our people are ready for this information to reach a larger audience, and it is our people right here who've been supporting the work that is making this film possible. We've had about 125 people over the past year who've contributed to our crowdfund effort, and therefore we've been able to get to this point of beginning this filming process. In order to complete this process, we also need your assistance. So once again, if the KUKUU-TUNTUM has impacted you positively, take a few minutes right now to assist in that process. We are actually in the process of scheduling logistically the next couple of filming dates over the next few days. So any contribution will assist us in that effort. Yet I'll say we want to thank those who have contributed even over the past few days when we posted some images from Florida as we were in the process of the filming process. We had a few people make contributions to the crowdfunding effort right there just because they're excited about seeing the work unfolding, and we are finally getting to this point where we're going to complete the film and you'll be able to see it, and it will be something that you can educate your children with and others who are connected with you, and you will begin to see your friends and your family members and your co-workers coming to you and saying, I left the church today, I'm no longer a Christian. I left the mosque today, I'm no longer a Muslim. I left the Moorish science nonsense alone, I'm no longer involved in that. I'm no longer involved in the Hebrew nonsense. I'm no longer involved in some pseudo-atheistic foolishness. I'm no longer involved in some hermetic foolishness. I'm no longer involved in some Kabbalistical foolishness. I'm no longer involved in some pseudo-Native Americanism which has no real foundation. I've returned to my ancestral religious culture, born of my blood circles, and that film, AMARUKAFO ADEBISA ADWUMADI, is responsible for that. So we want to say Yedase to everyone who's shared the KUKUU-TUNTUM over the past 16 years. Yedase to those who have supported our efforts, and Yedase to those of you who will support our efforts now and continuously. We have 16 years done something that is revolutionary, resolutionary, and now it's going to be even more transformational with the release of the film. So this was a special broadcast. We just want to give that cosmological foundation for 16 and everything that we're doing. Yet I say to everyone who is tuned in, if you have any questions, just hit us up in Facebook, Kwesi Akhan on Facebook, Odwirafo on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and of course, Odwirafo.com. So yet I say we thank you for tuning into the broadcast, and Yebeshiabio, we will meet again. Ptah.